to take you through the process of how I cut out my patterns. So it's pretty much, no matter what pattern you're doing, it's pretty much the same principle that I follow to make sure that I get the most out of my material and that I have full strips for the crossbody straps. So I'm going to take you through cutting out my next project, which will be the next video tutorial, which is the sunshine crossbody. So then the next video that follows on from this will be that bag being sewn up. So I'm going to do all of the outer in this vinyl, which is quite a sort of soft, it's not very thick vinyl, and then my interior lining will be a cotton which is interfaced. So I'll take you through the entire process of how I cut all of that out. So like I say, it's pretty much the same principle no matter which bag pattern you're cutting out. So I buy all of my vinyls roughly in a metre, because a metre is more than enough to do a good few bags, and it makes it a little bit easier to store. So this is sort of, this length here, this shorter length is the metre, so this is the selvage here. So what I do when I'm starting cutting out my pattern is I put the long edge long ways on my cutting table, and this means that this edge here is going to be my crossbody strap. So if you're cutting out this way, so this is the metre length, that's not going to be long enough for a crossbody strap. And then if you're cutting your pattern pieces out this way, you're going to reduce the width of your overall piece, so you won't get crossbody straps out of it as well. So what I always do is I always make sure that I'm putting it out with the longest length along the length of my cutting table. And then I'll always cut my crossbody strap first from this end. So I'm just going to sort of fold it up, and I'm going to start from this end here. And as you see, if I let go, it'll kind of want to fall off. So I just use my clapper, or you can use anything heavy to kind of keep it on the table, to keep that weighted down. So a thick book, or if you've got a couple of rocks, you know, like nice smooth sort of big size pebbles, they can be used. Pattern weights, anything like that can be used. I just tend to use my clapper because it's always there and it's always to hand. So what I'm going to do first of all is I am going to cut my crossbody strap from this length. So I'm going to be doing a 1-inch crossbody strap, so I want 4 inches wide by the entire length of the like the entire width of the piece that I've got, which is around about 56 inches, I think it is. So obviously it's not cut entirely straight, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it at about the 6-inch mark, so that I can straighten this edge off. If it runs out by 1 inch or a little bit more than 1 inch, it's still not going to encroach into the 4 inches that I need. And then any pieces that are around about the 2-inch mark, I will then utilise to get out my strap connectors. So I'll show you how I do that. This ruler is slightly shorter. It's only a 12-inch ruler than what I would normally use. I would normally use 24-inch length, but that's being used elsewhere at the moment. So I'm just going to run off with this 12-inch one. So I've got my rotary cutter, and I've lined it up against this edge here, which is the selvage edge, so we know that that's pretty much straight. So I've lined that edge up so that I know that this, where I'm cutting now, is going to be square. And then I just move it along, so I line up again the edge of the ruler by a few inches, make sure that that's nice and square, and then cut along again. And I just work my way along the whole length. So you can see here where it's starting to come under, where it's sort of not cut exactly straight, but that's fine because I only need it to be 4 inches. So as long as it's over 4 inches, that will be fine. So again, I'm just going to line that up and run that along, and I just keep, obviously I would sort of move around the table so that I'm not having to move the fabric so much, but obviously if I do that I'm going to get in your way. So obviously moving the fabric sort of towards me so that I can cut it but not be in your way is what I'm doing. So I know now that this here is my straight edge. So after, because this is the first time that I'm using this piece of vinyl since I bought it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write straight edge along this edge of my vinyl so that I know that that is where I need to cut my crossbody straps from. And I'm just going to move that out of the way for the time being. And then I'm going to cut this one down to 4 inches. So again, I just line it up with the edge, the selvage edge of the vinyl. I'm lining it up against the 4-inch line on my ruler. Trying not to let the ruler move. And then I'm just going to work my way along. Again, lining that 4-inch mark up. This is quite a bit easier if you do have a longer ruler, but like I say, it's been used elsewhere at the minute, so. And just make sure that you're always keeping your hands and your fingers out of the way. So either if you're sort of having to come over the top, make sure that your hand and your arms are well out of the way, and then you can come around to the back. Don't ever cut, and I know this is probably basic for quite a few of you, but this video is really aimed at those getting into bag making and just starting out. You don't want to be cutting with the rotary cutter towards your hands, because all it's going to take is one slip and you can quite seriously injure yourself. So make sure that your hands are either always completely over or behind, never in front. You can get gloves that sort of like, I think sort of chefs use them quite a bit. Yeah, so there is my crossbody strap. Oh, totally missed a bit there. That's easy enough to fix and sort out. I'm just going to line that up. And I'm going to come back to this bit in a minute. So this is now my crossbody strap all cut out, and just while it's there, because I need to know where the centre of this is when I'm making the crossbody strap, I'm going to mark it while we're on. And I'm just using like a normal pen here. It's not marking very well, to be fair, but it's enough for me to be able to see. So I've got the centre line marked down the middle, and that's going to be put to one side for my crossbody strap. So I'm going to need a few connectors. So I'm going to need, this is the straight edge, so I'm going to take the 2 inch along the straight edge, and just cut that down. So this is 2 inches long. And for my strap connectors, I always like to have mine slightly longer. I'm going to be doing hidden strap connectors in this pattern, so my connectors are going to be 8 inches long, and I'm going to leave it in one piece, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it on itself and top stitch it in one piece and then cut it in half. And because I'm doing hidden connectors, I like mine to be 8 inches long. Obviously if you're putting them in the sides, you would only need to cut them to around about, I would say, about 5 or 6, but it's always better to cut them a little bit bigger, because you can always cut them down. If you cut them too short, you're going to have to cut out completely new pieces, so always be better to have it a little bit longer than you need and cut it down as you're going. So there is my strap connectors, and as you've just seen, I've marked, because it's 2 inches wide, I've marked the 1 inch line down the middle so I can fold it in and top stitch that. So to move on to cutting out the pattern pieces. So as you can see, this is my straight edge, and I want to leave this one so that when I come to cut out another bag pattern out of this vinyl, I have a straight edge to work off. So what I'm going to do is turn the vinyl round and cut my bag pattern pieces from this side up. I'm not going to cut them from this length, because again this will reduce my width, meaning I can't get a full crossbody strap out of it. I will cut out coming this way. So effectively what will happen is, as you cut out pattern pieces on this side and crossbody pieces on this side, you'll eventually sort of meet in the middle, and just you'll have your scrappy bits from the middle. So I get out all of the pattern pieces that I will need. These have been traced onto, this is like clear cutting, like a cutting board that I've traced these onto, because I use this pattern a lot. I have traced out the paper pattern onto these, like say like a clear cutting board. It's quite good if you've got, if you're trying to fussy cut a pattern, you can see through it, you can see where your pattern is going to be placed in the middle. So the patterns that I use quite a lot, I will trace out onto this. So what I'm going to do is sort out which pattern pieces I need for my exterior, which are these ones, and then these are for the lining. So I'm going to just move them to one side for the time being, and I'm just going to keep my clapper on the vinyl to stop it sort of falling off. So we have our front panel and our front top panel, our back panel, and then we also have our sides as well. So I thought this would probably be a really good pattern to show you as well, because these pieces need to be mirrored, and I can't tell you the amount of times that I've cut out a pattern, specifically this pattern, and I haven't mirrored, so I've cut out 4 all going the same way. So if it needs to be mirrored, make sure that you mark it on your pattern piece if you're tracing it out. So I'm going to start off by putting my pattern piece on my vinyl, and I just have these 2 little rocks that are quite handy. You could use the clapper, but it's quite big, so I'd have to keep moving it around. So I like these two rocks, and what I'm going to do is just draw around this piece. So we only need to cut one of these and one each of these. So because my print isn't directional, I can flip this over and effectively cut it out upside down. So I am using as much or as little as of the vinyl as I can kind of get away with. I'm utilising it and sort of playing a little bit of Tetris. Obviously, if you were using a pattern print, they would have to face the same way, because then your pattern would be upside down. But because this is a plain vinyl, I can flip it over, do it upside down, and get the most out of my fabric. So these are the pieces that I need to cut off. I need 4 in total, because I need 2 for the front, 2 for the back, but I need 2 this way and 2 that way. So what I tend to do is do the 2 one way first, and then flip it and do the 2 the other way. So again, I'm kind of lining up against my other line, because I'm just trying to make sure that I get as much out of this vinyl as possible, mainly because I love it. So then I'm going to turn over and draw around and that is all of the pattern pieces for the exterior that I need, other than I am going to cut an internal zipper facing, but I shall do that in a moment once I've cut out all these pieces. So where I've traced round, I'm now going to cut out. So you can use your templates and cut against your template. This is quite thin, and obviously your pattern pieces as well are paper. And what I find is if you use your rotary cutter to cut round, you end up losing little bits of your pattern piece and they become the wrong size and don't marry up. So what I do now is I trace round, and then I will use, especially when it's straight edges like this is, I will use my quilting ruler to draw along these lines. So that I know that they're nice and straight. And then you can just put them with the corresponding pattern piece and move to one side. In some patterns, what you'll get is like a little sheet that you can print out and cut up, and they'll have little squares of the pattern pieces, so you can just sort of like clip the little label to them, which is quite handy. So I'm just going to work my way along now and cut out all of these pattern pieces, just being very careful when I get to the bits where they meet that I'm not taking my rotary cutter too far and cutting into the body of the pattern piece. Sometimes it's handy to use a slightly smaller rotary cutter because they can get into smaller parts a lot easier, or you can just use sort of a pair of scissors to snip those bits. So like I say, I'm just going to work my way through cutting out all of these pieces, and then we'll move on to the lining. So that is all my pattern pieces cut out. I've got these pieces, 2 of each, mirrored, and I have got my front pieces, and I have my back piece, and then I have my crossbody strap and my strap connectors. So that is all of my exterior cut out. I am going to interface this with some Decaville light, but I'll show you how I do that when I move on to the interfacing part. So I'm going to move on to cutting out the lining, which I am doing in a cotton. So I have, I think it's about 1/2 metre here of this beautiful art gallery fabric, which I think I got from Fab in Oakham. I've had it quite a while, so but I'm pretty sure that that's where I got it from. So out of this material, I need to cut my 2 lining pieces. If you aren't doing any pockets or anything like that, this is the only part that you'll need to cut out of this would be the lining pieces. I am going to do zipper pockets, and sorry, you would, in this pattern you would need to cut out the front lining piece for the zipper pocket as well. So yeah, so you'd need 2 of these, 1 of these cut on the fold or drawn round, and just 1 piece of this one. And then what I do for my interior zipper pocket is I use the same pattern piece and I just cut 2 out for the interior pocket, if you want to do them. So I'm going to move on to cutting these pieces out. Use the rocks again. And I'm going to draw around with my pen. And then move this out of the way and follow those lines. Now I've used a black pen so I can see it on this blue fabric, but if you're using quite a dark fabric you might want to use like a white fabric pen or some chalk. So I'm just going to move that out of the way slightly. Just making sure that those pieces stay lined up, because I'm cutting 2 out together, so I want them to, obviously I want them to be the same, I don't want them to change. Sorry, the camera decided to stop recording. So that's the 2 lining pieces cut out. Obviously this is a directional print as well, so I've made sure that that is facing the right way. So that is those 2. I'm then going to go over to being a single. And this is a tiny bit shorter, but it's the interior pocket of the, sorry, the exterior pocket for the zipper, so I will get away with it. So that piece is for the interior pocket at the front. And then I want 2 pieces for the interior pocket. Now what I could do is I could cut this out of a contrasting fabric, so some yellow or some green. Actually I've got some yellow, so I'm actually going to cut the contrast. I'm going to cut the interior pockets out of this yellow because I have absolutely loads of it. So again, I'm just going to do what I did before and just draw around. And then use the rotary cutter and the quilting ruler to cut them out nice and square. I think this will go quite well actually with that fabric as a contrast. that is the 2 pocket pieces cut out, and we're ready to interface. So to interface the lining pieces, I'm going to start off first by cutting out the 2 main lining pieces, which is this. So that works perfectly, just fits in. So I'm going to just do exactly the same as I did with the fabric. Is I'm going to draw around and then use my rotary cutter and quilting ruler to cut it out so it's nice and straight. And obviously where this has been folded up, I'm wanting to make sure that those creases are flattened out before I cut, so that I don't end up with a piece that's too big or a piece that's too small. It wouldn't be the end of the world, because it's interfacing. You can kind of franken piece the interfacing together, and I do that quite often because obviously good quality interfacing isn't cheap, so I will use smaller pieces and patchwork them together, especially for things like pocket pieces and, you know, pieces that aren't like the main body. So I've got this kind of small piece here. I can get my internal pocket pieces out of this and use up some of this piece here. And with my interfacing, while I do cut it pretty accurately, you can sort of cut it so it's a little bit over, because you can trim it back after it's been fused. Lots of people will do their interfacing and their cutting out of cotton slightly differently. They might interface the entire piece of cotton that they're going to need and then cut out all of the pieces together. Some people might just cut out the interface and then put it onto their big piece of cotton and fuse it and then cut out the cotton. I've tried all of those ways, and I just find cutting out my pieces separately, fusing them together and then just tidying up any edges is my preferred method. Trying to fuse quite big pieces of interfacing and fabric together isn't easy, and then if you're fusing your interfacing onto your cotton and then cutting it out, if you've got a pattern that you want to utilise, it's not always easy to see which part of the cotton that you're using. So yeah, so this is just how I do it. That's not to say that this is the only way to do it or the only right way to do it. It is just my preferred method. So, and then I'm just going to cut out the interfacing for my front pocket piece. So this needs to be cut on the fold, and I'm just going to quickly go around the pattern piece just for quickness. Just doing it carefully so that I don't take any of my pattern off and make the pattern piece smaller. So that is my all my interfacing cut out because I don't need to interface the exterior. You can if your vinyl's very, very thin, or your cork's very, very thin, but test it first. Slightly lower heat, make sure that you're using a pressing cloth. But yeah, you can interface your vinyl if it's quite thin and you want to give it a bit of structure. Now I am going to use some Decaville on my pattern pieces. Now this isn't in the pattern, the Sunshine Crossbody, but I know that I want this bag to be a little bit more structured, so I'm going to show you how I cut out my Decaville for those pieces, and I'm just going to show you it on one piece because the principles will remain the same on all of the pieces. So what I do first of all is, and we're just going to show you on this on sort of like this, the edge accent piece, is I'm going to draw around it. Now my seam allowances are 3/8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this pattern piece a 1/2 inch smaller on each side, because my seam allowance is 3/8 and I want that slight extra little bit where the Decaville isn't included so that it turns for the seams nicely. That is just what I find works well. So I'm just literally going around each seam and taking off 1/2 inch. Which then gives me my new pattern piece. So I'm just going to cut this out. And then because I'm cutting 4 of these, I'm going to use this one that I'm cutting out now as my template for the rest. And I'm going to cut out the front middle piece and the two front middle pieces and the back piece in Decaville in exactly the same way. So I'm going to trace around it, I'm going to reduce it by 1/2 inch all the way around, and that is the piece that will go onto my vinyl. So need to get the other side. So this will be fused on in this way, and as you can see it's out of the seam allowances all the way around. One thing you can do to make sure that it lines up well is just go around all of your edges, mark 1/2 inch. You don't necessarily need to do all of them, because then what I'm going to do is line that up like that, and then I know that that is the 1/2 inch all the way around when I fuse that. So I'm going to cut out all the other pieces for the exterior with Decaville, and I'll be back in a minute. So just going to move on to quickly showing you how I interface my fabrics. I'm not going to do the whole lot on camera because that would just be really, really boring. So I'm just going to show you how I basically do one piece. I'll do one of the full body lining pieces. What I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to press it without any interfacing or anything on it. What I want to do is I want to make sure that those creases of where that fabric's been folded, the way my stash are all out. So that's now nice and flat. So I'm going to turn it over. So wrong side is up, right side is down. And I'm going to place the interfacing, probably easier to do it this way. I'm going to place the interfacing, matching it up over the top. Now this is woven interfacing, so no stain. So I'm going to just press that down. If you were doing it with an iron, you just literally hold your iron over it in places. Don't go backwards and forwards, sort of pressing. Press down, move up, and then move to your next spot. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to stretch out that interfacing or the cotton. So I'm just going to turn it around the other way and press down. Now you can, if you want to, use a pressing cloth. I just use these Teflon sheets that I got off Amazon if I need to use them. And I'm just going to press from the front as well. So that's just to make sure that it's completely adhered. It's all stuck all the way around, and it's quite hot. So, but I'm just quickly sort of checking that, especially around the edges, that there's no bits that aren't adhered. So that is nicely pressed. What you can do if you've got a clapper, obviously on the main board, you can just use your clapper to press that down and make sure that that is well stuck. And I'm just going to go around and neaten off these edges where the interfacing is slightly bigger, because I'm a little bit OCD, and that is kind of what I'll do. So I'll go ahead and interface the rest of my pattern pieces, and then I just need to adhere the Decaville light. I've done the vast majority of my pieces, so I'm just going to show you on one of them. What I've done is I've marked half an inch around the entire edge, around the majority of the edge. I'm just going to line that up so that I know that I've got the half an inch all the way around. I'm going to put my pressing cloth on, and I'm just going to give it one quick few seconds press and just make sure that it hasn't moved when I've put the pressing cloth on or when I've pulled the iron down, and then just give it another few seconds press, and that is enough to adhere it. That is well adhered. It doesn't need any longer than that. If you do longer than that, you might risk sort of warping the vinyl, so you're best off doing it just in very short bursts. Don't press it for too long. Keep your temperature down a little bit as well when you're doing it on vinyl, and that should work perfectly for you. So that is all of my pattern pieces cut out and interfaced, and I'm ready to get sewing and make the bag up. I hope this video has been helpful. If you've got any questions, as always, just pop them in the comments box down below, and I always do my best to answer them. So thanks for watching. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to see my next video when it's released. I'll see you next time.